And the reason for that is that under Illinois law, the only two bodies who can deal with the, in substantive way, with the articles of incorporation are the board of directors and the voting members. So rather than divest the power to amend the articles of incorporation solely in the board of directors, we are incorporating the provision under Illinois law for membership organizations to allow that to go to a vote of the voting members. So the only way the articles of incorporation will be able to be amended is through a proposal from the board of directors, who would be the executive board, and then a vote of the voting members, which is a requirement under Illinois. Under Illinois law, the delegates can play no approval role in that. Now, what was added to it in discussion was for that to be required to be discussed by the delegates.
It was my amendment to add the discussion, and my idea was as follows. I wanted to be sure when the executive board proposed something, the delegates have a chance to discuss it, because I think there might be some occasions we can convince the executive board that it's a stupid proposal to change it, and we'll save the Federation money by not having to vote.
There's a strong opposition.
Roger, I had asked for approval of the board of delegates, and Harold liked that.
And I voted for it.
Harold pointed out that under Illinois law, that's not legal.
I'm not disputing that. But if there is strong opposition to whatever this amendment might be by the delegates, that's tough.
Well, there are two things that are strong
Put it in a
opposition.
nutshell, that's tough.
A, the executive board might realize this is a stupid thing and they can withdraw it. They don't have to go to the members. Or B, those of us at the delegates meeting who feel strongly enough can campaign to defeat it. But what's important to me is that the delegates know about it before the vote and have a chance to discuss it. And I think that would solve
Okay, election procedures, that means, election committee then will set up an election
Yes.
for this vote, which is probably for the.
It'll be a vote by the voting members.
Through that procedure by the voting.
It'll follow the election procedure. Whatever the election procedures happen to be in the bylaws at the time, that's what will be followed.
Ken first, and then the gentleman from Georgia, Michael first.
To throw a fly into the ointment of making this change effective January 1st, 2013, is there a concern with Article 5, Section 4, discussing the term of delegates? The term of each delegate shall commence on January 1st for the year for which selected and continue for 1 year and thereafter until a successor is selected and qualified. Could that be interpreted to mean that they continue to be directors of the corporation until their successor is selected and qualified? Yes.
Mike.
No. You cannot, under Illinois law, reduce the term of somebody's term of office as a director of the organization. However, you can say, effective January 31st, you're not a director when your term ends. At that point, the provisions for continuation are moot because your term has ended. What we are in effect doing is reducing the number of directors from 140 something or other to 7. That is thoroughly, completely legal under Illinois law.
Understood.
So the provision for continuation is therefore moot. Where we do have an issue is with somebody whose term of office does not end on December 31st, 2012. And that's the delegates at large and the people elected at the membership meeting later today. We'll deal with those separately.
I think we already dealt with the membership.
Yeah, I think we got those last.
That term ends December 31st. Mike.
Well, can we strengthen that, to Roger's point, can we strengthen it by requiring that if the executive board puts up to a vote something that the delegates advise against, that require that fact be published and then can be formed? Is that certainly, when it came back to the intent of the delegates having strong sway?
That's an interesting idea, Al.
I'm recounting conversations with the attorney.
I'm not sure that's going to pass legal muster, because then you have the Board of Delegates essentially making a statement that,
But they can make a campaign with their trade line.
well, yeah, I think that's where they would have to do it.
I think you're
Because Board
right.
of Delegates themselves cannot change the articles of incorporation.
That would be part of the Articles of Incorporation. That's literally saying that the voting members must be informed that the delegates opposed it.
Harold, who appoints the election committee?
I'm sorry, what?
Who will appoint the election?
Board of Delegates.
The delegates do.
Okay, then it's very simple. The delegates, since they appoint the election committee, can bind the election committee to say, you will include in these, since the election committee controls the procedures for election, they can just bind the election committee, you will include a provision expressing our disapproval of this motion. So I think we're covered.
Oh, you mean add that delegate?
Yeah.
You have
All
a,
right, I suppose that would, yeah, it's
Mr.
hard to
Slaughter?
work out the exact wording down, Ken.
If the delegates sufficiently strongly disapprove of the proposed change, can they simply refuse to appoint an election committee?
that would make it very difficult to replace members of the executive board that would be up for replacement the next summer.
Is that a bad thing?
So you, well, it depends on how bad you are at it.
Sounds like an appropriate punishment.
You can interpret that any way you want.
I will work on some language in case this comes up on the floor. I think there could be language, and that's a very interesting idea, Mike. That didn't occur to me. All right, let's see. I do want a...
Hold on here, Mike.
Just a technical question here. We're talking about votes of the members here in a couple of these instances. I just want to make sure, is it a vote of the majority of the members who have to vote, or just a majority of those that do vote?
The Illinois provision calls for those voting, a majority of the voting members who vote on the issue. Who vote on the issue. So, for example, if you had a ballot that had a provision like this in it, and you had other issues on the same ballot, let's say voting for EB members, then if you voted for an EB member but chose not to vote on this one, you didn't vote on the issue and you wouldn't be counted at all, even for calculation of majority. So it's only those who vote yes or no on the issue who would be counted. And I asked the attorney that very question, so thank you for...
With our beautiful track record of election results here with 54%, I just want...
Yeah, it's only those who choose to vote.
So, of those who, the way it currently is, of those who are currently registered.
No.
No.
It is of those who are voting members, which includes those who are registered, but it is only those who actually bother to vote on the issue.
But they do have to be registered voters.
Absolutely, but once they're voting members, the way the Illinois law provision works is whoever is qualified to vote under the provisions of the bylaws, of those then who choose to vote on the issue, there must be a majority to approve it. So if you had 1,000 people vote on the issue, those 1,000 people are going to determine. If you choose not to vote on the issue, then you accede to the will of the majority.
All right, I'd like to take one sub-vote before voting as a whole. The sub-vote is to approve the requirement of discussion at the delegate meeting before the vote of the voting members. The bylaws committee favored it 10 to 1 to 0 to 1, and the one who was against it wanted to mandate favored Guy's vote. So actually, it's probably like 11 to 0. Any discussion of that sub-requirement before we take the vote? There must be a discussion of a proposed amendment to the Articles of Incorporation at the delegate now starts, the Board of Delegates in their capacity as the Board of Directors. Hereby direct the Executive Director to cause the USCF Articles of Incorporation to be amended effective January 1st, 2013 as follows. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, the next paragraph, the change is in the bold wording after the word establish. There's the word amend has been added, establish, amend, or revoke one or more trusts. And then let's see, in the paragraph with the bold writing below that, it now says the Board of Directors must present any such amendment for discussion. Okay. And is there anything else on the first page?
That's all I had here.
Am I missing something, Guy? Or Al? On the second page,
Wait, whoa. You're combining 12, 14,
I'm sorry.
15.
You're right. Forget, we don't go to second page. All right, those are the amendments in 12, 14. If we're clear, are we ready to vote on the whole or any discussion first? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 14. That's 27. All those opposed? 1. All those abstaining? 0.
No, there's one.
Oops, I'm sorry, just that.
You have sneakers on, real eager.
12 to 15.
We need to start 12-15 with the language effective January 1, 2013.
Okay.
Or effective with the amendment of the article, whatever we're talking about.
It amounts to the same thing.
Let's have the consistent. Any discussion of any of these provisions? I think we're saying Board of Directors instead of Executive Board, and with the word must instead of will. And we have established amend or revoke.
That's on the second page of the
It's on
handout.
the second
To
page.
make the language mirror what we just
We want
did
mirror, right.
in 14. Remember, what 14 does is it changes the Articles of Incorporation. 15 changes the bylaws to match the Articles of Incorporation. Effective January 1, 2013.
That'd be the very start.
These will all be redone and handed out again tomorrow.
Yes.
And then at the top of the second page, revoke, establish, amend, or revoke. And then in the bottom, the amendment to Article 6, Section 7, the Board of Directors must present.
Right. Those are all the changes, except mirrors the changes we've made already. Any need for discussion?
I have a
Tom?
question. These are separate ADMs, and unlikely enough that one passes and the other fails, what the heck happens?
My intention is to move to combine them for passage together, for consideration together
Call
tomorrow.
it the Brownsville problem. Well, wait a minute.
I came
We're
in
going to
late.
do a Congress.
I came in late, and I wasn't sure I could even vote in the meeting here. I'm just a delegate.
As long as you feel you're sufficiently informed to vote, it's up to you. I would get.
Never bothered.
I couldn't even raise my hand on stage. I would have been more work.
But certainly, in managing these on the floor, I'll just tell you right now, it's my intention to move to combine these two, because one absent the other is silly. I'm going to do that, and I'll ask you all as the delegates to vote to combine and then decide on this one. That's the same thing we were just talking about combining 10 through 13.
Out there.
Just a question on the last page here, Article 6, Section 2, the following reference, Article 4, Section 86 here.
I'm sorry, I don't know where.
Okay, the last two paragraphs on this last page, you have Article 6, Section 2, and then the next paragraph, Article 4, Section 7, read Article 6, Section 7.
I don't.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think so.
Let's see what Article 4 says.
No, we absolutely mean Article 4, Section 7, because Article 4 deals with the voting members.
Oh, you're adding a section 7.
It's not being amended, it's
Yeah,
added.
we are under, it is being added to Article 4 because Article 4 deals with the voting members.
All right, is there any further discussion of ADM 1216? All right, do I need to go through the changes again before taking a vote?
No.
Basically, it's to conform to 1214. If not, we can just proceed to the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 9, and 11, Tom, being consistent as well. 13, 14.
16.
All those opposed? Wow. Abstentions? Okay.
There.
We got right along. What's next?
Um,
Oh, boy, the litigation.
Before you go to that, I would like to answer a question, the answer of which I've already provided to the Bylaws Committee, the GTF Committee, and Tim and Leroy. And we mentioned it yesterday, but Siobhan had raised the question,
Oh,
if you make these changes and things, who can dissolve the organization? The organization, a member organization in Illinois, cannot be dissolved by the action of the board of directors. A membership or a non-member, non-profit, thank you, local hospital, can be dissolved by the action of the board of directors, but any corporation, any non-profit corporation in Illinois with members, the board of directors could authorize a resolution of dissolution, and either with a recommendation to vote for it or not. The voting members would then, the voting members then decide that. And under operation of Illinois law, it requires a majority of the voting members who vote on the issue. Just like we have for the amendments of the Article of Incorporation. For amendments of Article of Incorporation, we mirrored the language for dissolution in Illinois law. But it functions as a matter of Illinois law, and we cannot take away the rights of the voting members to vote on that. You cannot change the rights of the voting members to vote on it. All you can do is increase the majority requirement up to 2/3. So presently, our Articles of Incorporation bylaws are completely silent on this issue. Right now, we follow the operation of Illinois law, where any move to dissolve the organization must be approved by the voting members with a majority of those voting on the issue. And it falls under the election provisions, again, as directed in the bylaws of the organization as to how the election would function. So Siobhan had raised the issue. It had been answered to everyone who got the question presented to them. And I just wanted, and we talked about it on Wednesday, but I also wanted to bring it up here.
all right, we're in a very complicated subject now, which I call litigation limitation. This is on page 19 of your delegation law. You were referred to bylaws and resolutions from Senator Paul that says any person who is sued USCF is in the process of suing, except if the Federation exceeds its authority, will not serve on any board or committee, nor be a delegate from any state. Bylaws came up with an alternative wording drafted by Robert Persante, a Florida lawyer. It's also on page 19. That's worded a bit differently. No party or any attorney representing a party in litigation, arbitration, or administrative proceedings against USCF may serve as a state delegate or as a member of the executive board, except that members of the executive board may continue to serve if any such legal action is worked solely in his or her capacity as a member of the executive board. The person who is an officer, director, partner, trustee, shareholder, or a member of an entity in litigation, arbitration, or administrative proceedings against USCF can serve as a state delegate or member of the executive board. So there are a couple of differences in this proposal. It included people involved in litigation, such as a law firm. It did not bar people from serving on committees. Now, the committee preferred the alternative says the USCF is taking an action that exceeds its own authority, they may well have the legal right to bring such an action, much as we might dislike the person bringing the action. So, we can discuss this at length. We can just go with the committee and let's think about this for another year and get a firm legal opinion, which is certainly my recommendation. It was my recommendation in the court. I throw it open for discussion. Joe?
I noticed here that, the delegates at large are excluded. Was that intentional?
So which section are we talking about?
No party,
Oh,
no
sure,
attorney,
state
no
delegate.
party, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, if you're going to do that, you probably should include delegates at large. That's true. I don't know why Robert didn't include that.
Probably because their number is so few.
But that's a good point. Again, my recommendation and the committee's is let's just think another year and get some better legal advice because we don't want to take any action that would just lead to more litigation, saying this provision is illegal. Is there any discussion? If not, I move that we go along with the committee and agree to delay any action for a year. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 on this stuff. 23. All those opposed? We want to do something now, raise your hand. All, 2. All those abstaining? Got you something. 1 on here. Good. All right. 1217 is a technical amendment. It's found on page, the text is on page 20 of the delegate's call. It's from me, it's a suggestion of Mike Nolan, who's coming back. And it's simply that we left out some words about memberships. We left out the word "life" in one place. And we didn't specify that each family membership shall provide 1 paper copy just like to the household, plus 1 paper copy just like the kids. Mike, you want to speak about that at all?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure where you are.
We're on 1217, submitted by you and me. You're the one who came up with it. The text is on page 20. It's really technical. We'd like to think it speaks for itself. The committee endorsed it 11-0, 1 abstention. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Figure out.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. You said 11? 26. All those opposed? And there's got to be abstentions. No?
All those abstaining from abstaining?
So I guess we're losing some.
That's why I said.
All right, 12:21. Now, this may or may not be controversial. The committee voted against it 1-9-1-1, but actually, since we're recommending that the delegates not be the board of directors, I don't know if the executive board wants to push it. One problem I had with this.
Hey, Harold, before you go on, notice there's a numbering error. So what Harold is calling 1221 is actually on page 20 of your delegates call. It's number 1223. You'll notice the numbering goes 1220, 1223, 1222, and then it's 1223 again. So this is just a scrivener's error, and it should be 1221, as Harold referred to.
This is a conflict of interest policy. The executive board has already adopted it. This is asking.
The executive board has adopted it to apply to the executive board and the officers of the corporation.
Right. This is asking that it apply to the delegates, although I'm hoping they'll withdraw it if we pass the earlier resolutions. And one of the problems I had, annual statements includes that each director, principal officer, and member of a committee with governing board delegated powers, whatever that means, has to annually sign statements. They received a copy of the conflicts of interest policy and understand it. Again, if we make the executive board the board of directors, I don't see any need for this at all.
Yeah, it is in here because of that very issue, Harold. If the delegates remain the board of directors, then under Internal Revenue Code 501c3, which is the charitable organization provision of 501c. Parenthetically, there are 12 different types of nonprofit corporations authorized under the Internal Revenue Code. We are presently a 501c4, which is for governing sports bodies. 501c3s are charities which are focused on educational, religious, or welfare type of items, and you all amended the mission of the USCF 3 years ago to incorporate more of an educational thrust. And so we filed that application. One of the requirements of the Form 1024, which is the application for tax exempt status, is to indicate whether or not the organization has adopted the model IRS conflict of interest policy, which is what is contained in ADM 1221, and if not, in what ways it is seeing that it is avoiding conflicts of interest among its board of directors. So, and those in governance. So there still is a reason why one might want to extend it to the delegates because they are still involved with governance, but it is absolutely critical that it apply to the board of directors. So if 12, 14, and 15 don't pass, then this certainly will not be will not be withdrawn because we will have to deal with it. We've told the IRS we have the conflict of interest policy for those in governance because it was indeed adopted by the EP. So we'll have to deal with this if we don't pass 14 and 15.
My only other comments are considering the overwhelming vote here in favor of 12, 14, and 15, and I'm confident will pass. Considering the problems we've got in getting delegates to sign.
Oh yeah, it's a big problem.
For them to sign the annual statement, which they would have to, but they received a copy of the conflicts of interest, they've read it, understood it, they've agreed to comply, understand the organization is charitable and must engage primarily in activities which accomplish lots of luck in getting people to sign that statement.
I don't think that would ever be easy at all. I totally get it, Harold.
All right, any further discussion, or we can proceed to vote on 1221. We might want to break this up on if 14 and 15 pass, or if 14 and 15 don't pass.
The requirement for the annual signature and annual acknowledgement is part of the IRS model conflict of interest policy, so it's really sort of not optional. If you don't follow their model policy, you have to explain why you thought it was better not to. And the fact that you can't get people to respond to you is really not the greatest option.
We'll take two votes. Any further discussion? I see gentlemen's hand.
So are we not getting the response? Do we get via delegate that we have to acknowledge that you accepted the position now?
Yes, you do, but we have a separate resolution. You'll notice a lot of blanks on this list of the delegates.
I would think you combine it all into one.
You certainly would, and if we were to do this, that's exactly what you would do. You do it at the same time. The problem is it is a tremendous, continues to be a tremendous struggle, and Guy, you might be able to address that better to get those responses from the states.
You'll have a motion dealing with that. There are extra copies of here of two motions that are not on the agenda. You're free to take, but let's stick to this.
In theory, we get, you're supposed, the state is supposed to submit their list of delegates